Hello and welcome to that Grassroots Ramble. It's International Women's Day, so this month we're going to be focusing on the fast-growing women's game, starting with a look at women in the workforce in football.
Yes, that's right. We have been joined by Surrey FA's Workforce and Education Officer, Chloe Longdon. So stick around for some fantastic insight and advice about how you can forge a career in the game as a woman.
Chloe, welcome to the show. Now, you're a qualified referee, coach, former player and current Education and Workforce Officer at Surrey FA. Tell us a bit about your journey from playing to working in football.
Sure, I'm not that old. I started off playing sort of at home. The main sort of time of development was at university. I threw myself into it more than my studies and essentially volunteered as much as possible. I was president of the club, I was an activator, ran futsal sessions for players, coached the second team whilst playing for the first team, and essentially did as much as possible. Then I came out of university, I had an ankle injury, didn't play. Agreed to coach at the university still while I wasn't there, carried on doing that, and essentially built myself into someone who could work in football whilst having a degree in classics.
Oh, great combination there. And I think, like a lot of people watching, your journey in football is obviously taking you here, there and everywhere. And now you have this role at the Surrey Football Association, Workforce and Education. Can you tell us a little bit about what that entails?
Yeah, it's something a bit different to what I was used to. Essentially, the role is new for us as a county. I am responsible for looking after coaches and referees once they've done their course. What we don't want to do is sort of qualify people and then release them into the wild and never see them ever again. So with the coaches, there's a coaching pathway in terms of qualifications that they can go through. For referees, it's about how we support them after they've gone through their course, and to make sure that we don't sort of just surrender them to the public and say bye.
Yeah. I mean, you're a fantastic example of someone who turned their passion into a career, and obviously you talked about, you started off playing and injuries navigated you elsewhere. Obviously we're focused on the female side of the game, where we know there's a gender gap in terms of participation. What are the FA doing about that?
Currently the massive drive is around doubling participation in women's football, and in Surrey we've done well at that. I'll be honest, we're ahead of our target numbers, we're doing well, but if you compare it to the men's game still, it's still there. I think in Surrey at the minute our numbers are around 56,500 men's players to 4,500 women playing football, which is better than it was, don't get me wrong, much better than it was, but we're still keen to really sort of build those numbers, and it's how we do that. We're looking at recreational football, competitive, young, old, all spectrums of how we can get women involved in the game, where potentially they may have missed it before or they may not have thought of it yet. The FA have got some fantastic initiatives like Wildcats, which is 5 to 11-year-old girls in a fun, not necessarily most football, core sports skills that people need, but building the football into it in a fun kind of way. They use things like Disney and different avenues to sort of encourage people to take part. That's one of my favourite ones.
And I suppose when we think about participation, we think mainly about playing, but I've done a little bit of homework on the Surrey FA and seen that you've taken up a really inclusive recruitment policy, and now 9 of 25 roles are occupied by females, including the CEO, football development manager and members of the senior management team. When we talk about women's football and days like today when there's such a spotlight on the women's game, how important is it having senior women in football leading strategies for organisations across the country?
I think it's really important to have role models for people to look up to. I think that's true whether I'm a 5-year-old player looking at the under-7s team or whether I'm in my office and looking around at my peers and my colleagues. I think if you find yourself isolated, it's a lot harder to carry on with what you're doing, and that comes back to around a confidence thing that I think women in football in particular need. I think it's a confidence level of, I do belong here, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I can carry on and make change, which I think really helps when you've got that environment around you.
I mean, and some people are quite sceptical about things like International Women's Day or month, aren't they? Like this, dedicated to minority groups, but they're so important, aren't they?
They really are. I think it comes back to that idea of we're not at a stage yet where it's not important. And I personally, I often hands up, I dismiss it slightly, but it's a reminder for society more than just football as well, that it's, you know, we need to have these conversations. We need to be breaking down the barriers so that young girls are able to look up and go, I can be anything I want, and there's not a role out there that's not suitable for me, because I can see her doing this, her doing that, and her doing that. And that's kind of what we're trying to do, I think.
I think that's a really important point, and I know at the county you're about to undertake some work around ambassadors. So is that kind of linking in with what you were telling us about the importance? Because I know there's a lot of research as well, isn't there, behind how having a role model and those kind of influences can impact your involvement?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that we've sort of talked about this season and are really going to try and stamp in next season. We've got a campaign this season around This Is Surrey Football, to try and be as representative as possible. So we've spoken to female candidates on their level 2. We've spoken to one of our members of our youth forum, which is a group of young people who deliver events for 12 to 16 year olds, and she's got her own business and is a fantastic role model for people that we want to share. So we're trying to do that as much as possible to try and demonstrate what women in football can do, so that people don't just sit and think it's just playing, or it's just this, or it's
breaking down some stereotypes.
Yeah, exactly.
And for those women and girls watching who are looking to forge a career in the sport, what's the first step to take, and what advice would you give them?
Be confident. I think that's the really key thing, is having the confidence to go into your club and go, I want to volunteer, or go and do a referee's course, or go join a team at whatever age you're at. I think it's all about confidence, and if that means taking your friend with you, take your friend with you, but go out and do it, because otherwise we'll constantly be trying to catch up instead of getting there.
I think you've obviously highlighted that now there are just so many opportunities for women and girls of all ages to get involved in football in whatever means that they want, and particularly in Surrey it seems like there's some really exciting things going on. Well, Chloe, thank you for giving up your time to fill us in. You're a fantastic role model and example yourself, and I think people will take a lot of inspiration from what you've told us, so thank you.
If you're a woman that would like to know more about working opportunities in football, we've put some resources in the description below, along with Chloe's Twitter details.
And as always, you can let us know what your opinions and thoughts are on this topic by reaching out to our Facebook page or on Twitter using the hashtag #ThatGrassrootsRamble. Make sure you join us next time, where we will be discussing the ever so slightly controversial new guidelines from the Football Association around heading the ball. Until next time.
If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a ramble.